Okay, so like I said, one more topic to cover, and then you're going to have a quiz tomorrow. If you have to make up the quiz, the questions for the quiz will be on Focus under the Resources tab, and then the answer section for the quiz will be under Alerts on the main page of Focus. So let's take this factoring that we've been doing all week and apply it to the area of a rectangle is 2x squared minus 13x minus 7. What are the possible dimensions of the rectangle? Area of a rectangle, okay? The area of a rectangle is equal to the length times the width. Well, if we treat the area as this trinomial, and we treat the length and width as the factors of the trinomial, we can find the possible dimensions. So all you're really being asked in this question is to factor 2x squared minus 13x minus 7. Okay? So let's draw our table. We're not using upper left, and the only factors of 2x squared are 2x and x. The only factors of negative 7 are 1 and 7. And we need the middle term to be a negative 13. So if we've got to get to a 13 and our factors are 1 and 7, I'm going to use the 7 times the 2x to get a 14x. And since I need this 13, this middle term, to be negative, I want this 14x to be negative. Therefore, the 7's got to be negative. The only other factor of 7 is 1. And since our last term is a negative, we need a positive times a negative to get a negative 7. And this positive 1 times x is x. And when we combine the x and the negative 14x, we get negative 13x. So we're good on our middle term. And 2x times x is 2x squared. So we're good with these factors on our first term. So what are the possible dimensions of the rectangle? Well, the one possible dimension is 2x plus 1. And the other possible dimension is x minus 7. All right, so that's taking factoring of a trinomial and applying it to a problem. Okay, so what I want you to pay attention to next here is when you are asked, you've just been asked to factor each expression, or you've been asked to factor the trinomial so far this week. But when the directions instructions say to factor each expression, keyword here is completely. Factor each expression completely means that you have to factor out the greatest common factor before you factor the trinomial. Factor completely means that you have to factor out the GCF, the greatest common factor, before you factor the trinomial. Here's what I mean by that. If you're asked to factor each expression completely and we get 18x squared minus 33 minus 33x plus 12. What we have to do first is find the greatest common factor of 18, 33, and 12. That's the largest number that goes into each of those evenly. All right, now I see it as being a 3. So we're going to factor out a 3 first. So when we factor out a 3, we take the 3 and we divide it into each term. So 3 goes into 18x squared, 6x squared times. And 3 goes into 33x, 11x times. And then 3 goes into 12, 4 times. And now we have to factor this 6x squared minus 11x plus 4. And please, don't forget to bring this 3 down with your answer. Okay? So we're going to build our table. And for 6x squared, we got factors of 1 and 6 and 3 and 2. I'm going to try the 3x and the 2x. And we've got factors of 4 and 1 and 2 and 2. And I'm thinking the 2 and 2 because 2 times 2 is 4 and 2 times 3 is 6. That doesn't work, does it? What about 4 and 1? A 4 and a 1. That gives me 3 times 4 is 12x. 2x times 1 is 2x. I can't get to an 11 with those two, can I? So let's try 6x and x. And if I do a 2, 4, if I do a 2 and a 2, I get a 2x and a 12x. That doesn't work either, does it? With a 3x and a 2x. The 4 and the 1 didn't work. The 2 and the 2 will give me 4x and 6x. That doesn't get me to 11, does it? With the 6x and the x, 4 and 1, I get a 6x and a 4x. That doesn't get me there, does it? Okay. So I'm trying to keep these where I can see them. What haven't I tried? 3x and 2x. I've tried 4 and 1. Okay, here we go. How about the 4 times the 2 gives me an 8x, and the 1 times the 3, yeah, finally, gives me the 3x. Okay, so now, what I can't stress to you enough is when you're taking your quiz tomorrow, that you've got plenty of room like this. Because what I've seen people do in the past is, instead of keeping these tables that you've already built that weren't successful, they erase. And what they end up doing is getting anxious and putting the same numbers back in, and they don't work again. All right, so just be calm. All the problems are going to be factorable. Just make sure that you can see what didn't work so that you don't waste time trying the same factors again. So we've got this 3x and a 4. So what do we got to get to in the middle? We got to get to a negative and a positive. A negative and a positive. So both of these factors have to be negative, because 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x. When we combine these two in the middle, we get negative 11x. And then negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. And 2x times 3x is 6x squared. So all of our checks work. Now, this is a perfect example of a time that it would be real easy to forget about this 3 up here. So look the problem back over. We got to carry this 3 over. And we've got a factor of 3x minus 4. And 2x minus 1. So that is factored completely. Factoring completely, you got to pull a GCF, a greatest common factor, out of the trinomial first. And then what's you're left with is what you factor next. All right, so let's try one more of these. We're going to factor this completely. We've got 8x squared minus 36x minus 20. The largest factor of 8, 36, and 20. I'm going to go with 4. So then we divide 4 into each term. 4 into 8x squared goes 2x squared times. 4 into 36x goes 9x times. And 4 into 20 goes 5 times. So we're going to factor that 2x squared minus 9x minus 5. Little simpler here because 2x squared only has 2 possibilities, 2x and x. And 5 only has 2 possibilities of 1 and 5. We got to get to a 9. So with the 1 and the 5, I want to multiply the 5 by the 2. So that puts the 1 down here. So 2x times 5 is 10x. Since we're looking for a negative 9, then this 10 needs to be negative, which means this 5 needs to be negative. Since our end term is negative 5, and one of our terms is already negative, since one of our factors is already negative, the other factor has to be positive. So 1 times x is x. 2x times x is our 2x squared. Our x plus negative 10x equals negative 9x. That works. And our positive 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. So those are our 3 checks. So our factors are, don't forget the 4. We got 2x plus 1 times x minus 5. All right, anybody have any questions on factoring completely? When you factor completely, be sure you take out the greatest common factor first. And then the most important part is you take it out. Make sure you bring it along with your answer. It's very easy to leave it behind. Highlight it, do something to it, circle it, star it, whatever you have to do to make sure that you bring along the GCF with your final answer. All right, so your practice for today is right here. These 6 problems.